All right, well, joining us in studio this morning, we have Zimbabwean political strategist Acie Lumumba, as well as political analyst Tino Mambeu. Thank you so very much, gentlemen, for joining us this morning on Afro Breakfast.
Thank you very much.
Well, as a start, I mean, do we know really at this stage, and I think I'll start with you, Acie, do we know at this stage who may be responsible for either of these attacks, and are they linked? I see that both are being seen as assassination attempts, but by whom?
I think what's important to put on record is there is process in place. The president will meet with his Joint Operations Command team today. They will look at the evidence that they have thus far. The trouble with coming up with assumptions at this stage is everybody becomes a political analyst overnight, everybody becomes a bomb expert overnight. When the truth is there are people who are trained and qualified to perform that service. And I think it is only correct in due process that we allow that to happen. I think the authorities will let us know when there is anything for us to know. The important thing for us to know right now is that the president is safe, he's in charge of the country, and he is in complete control of the circumstances prevailing in this case. It's unfortunate that it happened, and that it happened in two countries who were having two political rallies. It's a threat to democracy, it's a threat to how we have political gatherings, but most importantly, I think it's an opportunity for both presidents in Ethiopia and in Zimbabwe to demonstrate strong leadership that we will get rid of this on this continent.
Well, talk to us then about the situation. As Acie, I'm going to stay with you, sir. Talk to us about the political climate in Zimbabwe. I mean, the big news that we were all talking about, obviously, last year was when President Robert Mugabe stepped down. But I suppose we haven't really been in tune with what really is going on now with Mnangagwa. And you say he's got a hold on what's going on in Zimbabwe, but a bomb threat says quite the opposite. And I'm sorry to be that political analyst overnight that you speak of. Is there any kind of a possibility that these may be factors or people somehow linked to President Robert Mugabe, or are you going to dispel my little story as my co-host did earlier?
So when a situation like the threat that happened on the president takes place, the first question you ask yourself is, who would have a motive to do this to the president? So would President Robert Mugabe have a motive? Again, the authorities will establish that. Would anybody else have a motive? The reality of the case is somebody had a motive to do this. Now, the motive is not against President Emerson Mnangagwa, because you can attack anybody. The motive is against the people of Zimbabwe, because when you instill fear, you don't instill fear in the president's life by any attack you do on him. You instill fear in his family, you instill fear in his supporters, and you instill fear in the nation. There is simply no room in Zimbabwe for this type of behavior. Now, there will be a lot of conspiracy theories, and a lot have already started running on, oh, it's President Robert Mugabe, oh, it's G40, oh, it's the Matabeleland group. And again, I keep going back to what the president said. The president understands he's had enemies. Understand this about President Emerson Mnangagwa. He's not new to threats. This is the man who went to war when he was 19 years old. He's ducked and dived on top of bombs all his life growing up in politics. So it's new to us as a generation. It's not new to the man. So he has simply survived another attack on his life. I think the country has survived an attack on it. It's a very new type of attack. But to say the president is not in control, to say the country is not stable, that's very far-fetched. I think that's why he went back on the campaign trail. That's why he went to visit everybody at the hospitals, because he is demonstrating that what can he do under the circumstances. He can, on one hand, let the investigations take place, but on the other hand, he assures the nation, I've got everything under control, the country moves forward, this election will happen. The vice president said yesterday in Chitungwiza that nothing is going to get in the way of these elections. You don't have elections because the environment is conducive. You have elections because it's time to have elections. It's a constitutional instruction that 5 years from the previous date of an election, you must have an election. That's why we're going to an election. I think President Nelson Chamisa of the MDC came out, gave very strong remarks to say we must continue. This is not acceptable, and he is ready to continue with the elections. And he is the only opposition leader worth talking about. So if he's ready to go for the election, if the president is ready for the election, let's go to the elections.
All right. Well, let me come to you, Tino, sir. He speaks about motive. Acie speaks about motive and what could be the reason for this. And, we've heard our own government, the South African government, saying, we should be worried about this because this could cause disunity and confusion in other African states. When you say other African states, you're also talking about South Africa. Are these fears warranted? Is it correct, this assessment, if I can put it that way? Is that assessment by the South African government correct? Could this spread? I mean, we see now it's Zimbabwe, and at the same time it then happened in Ethiopia. Is there a possibility that this could then spread?
Firstly, I should like to condemn such acts of barbarism, which is a clear indication of a national security threat. But as you allude to, and as the President Ramaphosa has said, it is indeed a worrisome trend where we saw that happening in Ethiopia and we saw it happening in Zimbabwe. Now the question is, how does somebody sneak a bomb or whatever device into such a high security area? How does that happen? You should remember that around last year in October, the defense forces of Zimbabwe were given a budget of about 300 million, if I'm not mistaken. And now it points to such questions as to how is the money being used when the security of the office of the president is not guaranteed? How does it become possible that somebody can then go with a device that is quite dangerous in a place where we have the leadership of the country and the leadership of the party? This means to an extent that we are not safe in Zimbabwe. This means to an extent that anything is possible in Zimbabwe. And as the people of Zimbabwe, we don't really like that. We want to feel safe and we want to feel comfortable. How do we feel comfortable when the head of state is not comfortable? What separated the head of state from his injuries is a mere step. It's just a difference in time. And that speaks quite a lot. And to make matters worse, we are 2 days after the event, and we have not heard of any arrest being made. Why has somebody not been arrested? Where are the security services?
And to top that, sorry to come in there, Tino, just to top that, why has this not been flagged as some kind of a terrorist attack, for instance? I mean, I've seen all the reports, I've seen all the, all the articles on these particular incidents, and I've not picked up anywhere where it's been seen as some kind of a terrorist act. Why is that?
I think the president came out and said that this event is a result of the enemies that he has had. But now the problem is, while the president is admitting that he has got enemies, what about the ordinary Zimbabweans who attend those rallies that are now becoming part of the target? Because at the end of the day, it is people that get injured that are not really enemies of the president, or that are not really connected to the president in a certain way. So it really sends a message that probably the president is not in charge, or is not physically in charge of the country, or in charge of the security apparatus around him. So if his enemies can attack him and also pose a threat to Zimbabweans, then we've got a serious problem. I think for the president, he has got to make sure that he's in charge, and we want to see a president that is in control. Regardless of the fact that he has got enemies, those enemies must not harm the public, let alone his office. It's unacceptable, and we would want more. We say to the security services in Zimbabwe, they should come up with quick action and make sure that this does not happen again. And I would want to take you back to the scene. When we saw on TV what happened, there was no immediate action from the police force to try and safeguard the area, to make sure that people that were even within that particular area were saved, and proper checks and balances were taken. Yeah. It's a problem. We don't really know what is happening, and we are afraid as a people. We are afraid as a nation. So it's a problem.
All right, so, Acie, there's something that you said, and it's just stuck to me now that I should actually challenge you on this one. You've said that Emmerson Mnangagwa is somebody who's been in the trenches. He's a guy that's been in the military. He's been dodging bullets and ducking and diving and all of that. Why must we still have that kind of a president in an African nation? Are we that far from leading, where we're supposed to be dealing with issues of policy, of getting people to, have the economy right, of the hunger that needs to be stopped on this continent? But we're having presidents, leaders, who are known to be people who dodge bullets, who can escape a bomb attack. Does that mean we're that far from reaching the actual important goals of, stabilizing the people of these countries when we have to have military men? What are we fighting?
Okay, let me categorically guide where I think both of you have got it wrong. First of all, I'll deal with your syllogism that are we that far that we need presidents with a military background? First of all, we must honor anybody who sacrifices their lives for our freedom. That's what these men did. When they were much younger than you and me are, they were not cowards. They decided they were not going to be oppressed. They'd get out on the street and they would fight. There is nothing to undermine there. There is everything to respect. Secondly, we must understand the process of democracy doesn't say what is right for one person. It is what does the public want. President Emmerson Mnangagwa is in office as a result of process. It's a result of process, the same process that removed President Robert Mugabe, the same process that Robert Mugabe wrote to Parliament to say he was resigning. So the vice president or the delegated person from the party is the one that would then take over the country until the next election. He is there as a result of process. Now, if you think you're a better candidate, if anybody thinks they're a better candidate, this is exactly why the Constitution promulgates that we must go to an election, so that if you want somebody else, you can put in somebody else. But may we never find ourselves as young black Africans discrediting the journey that these men have traveled, so you and me can even be sitting on this TV
But that journey
set.
doesn't necessarily give you the right to be a leader, to be a president, to lead a country, does it?
What gives you the right to be a leader, like I said, is the process in which your country or your company chooses its leadership. President Emmerson Mnangagwa did not wake up in the morning and sit in that office. There is a process passed by the Constitutional Court of Zimbabwe for him to be in that office. And when he goes to the next elections, the people of Zimbabwe will decide to keep him or not. But I must raise the issues that, you must give me the opportunity to respond to the issues that Tino raised.
Sure.
Tino raised the issue that, is there a threat to the national security of Zimbabwe? And now Zimbabweans are not very safe, and nobody has come out yet and been given responsibility, or rather been given charge of what happened over the weekend. Let me put some sense to this. If what Tino is looking for is validation that the president was put at risk, then yes, he is very validated. The president was put at risk. But understand this. When you attack the president of South Africa, when you attack the president of Zimbabwe, the president of America, you're not attacking the individual. You're attacking the office of the president. It means you are attacking the country. What they are really fighting is not Emmerson Mnangagwa, the man. They're fighting the office and the idea that Emmerson Mnangagwa, the man, is in charge of. Now, what is that idea that Emmerson Mnangagwa, the man, is in charge of? The new dispensation, the idea that Zimbabwe can move past its very gory past and move into a new country where whatever version of prosperity I have, I can find it. He has, he can find it. Do we need to do better? Absolutely. But it's not the president that has to do better. It's not just the military that has to do better. When an attack like this happens, the two people involved is the attacker and the attacked. The attacked is the Zimbabwean people. The attacker, we will find out. I give you my word, one thing I know about the Zimbabwean security sector, they will find out. You're talking about one of the finest trained security sectors on the continent. They've been to Libya, they've been to the Congo, they've been to Lesotho recently, they've been to Mozambique to force and cause peace. Okay. So they will find out. And when they do, we will know. But right now, what's at attack is the idea President Emmerson Mnangagwa is pushing, that Zimbabwe can be a new country with a new dispensation away from Robert Mugabe.
All right, that sounds like a threat. You will be found. I see you've got a response to that.
I have got to respond to what my colleague here, Acie, says. He says that it is an attack on the office of the president. Yes, of course, because he happens to occupy that particular office. But we should not also forget what the president himself has said. The president has said, these are my enemies. I know about them.
Yeah. All right, well, gentlemen...
No, well, before you could...
We are running out of time. You're going to have to be brief on this one so that we can wrap up. Yeah.
So before the president could even say any further about the new dispensation of about his policies, they are not attacking his policies. He has been attacked previously and in 6 or so occasions. So these are people that do not really attack what he stands for. They attack his person. Yeah. And that's the problem number one that we have. And the second problem that we have in Zimbabwe, which is also a national security, is the unwillingness of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission to make sure that they implement reforms that will lead to free, fair, credible elections. And if they continue on that path, they are inviting trouble into the motherland. They have got to stop it.
Gentlemen, I look forward to having you for a more in-depth conversation on these issues. I appreciate your time. Well put. Thank you, gentlemen. That's Acie Lumumba, Zimbabwean political analyst, and Tino Mambeu, also a political analyst. There is a short break. Afro Breakfast returns at 8:30 with your headlines. Do stay with us.